to kind of
But
get
that
rid
was kind of a big W for Drake, I think, the Super Bowl performance, right?
Oh, for sure.
Because like if you compare past Super Bowl people, you have like Beyonce,
Yeah.
Bruno Mars.
Yeah.
It's like Kendrick. It's like,
And he made it all about Drake.
yeah,
He could have
exactly.
performed Don't Kill My Vibe, all of his classics like the ADHD stuff. Like it's just he didn't do it. He obviously wanted to make it about him and whatever. In my opinion, it is what it is. And in my opinion, like I think Drake won that beef because the rap battle, because it's like obviously Kendrick made the hit song, the Not Like Us, but it's all lies. He said he had a daughter, which was debunked, and then the pedophile.
People forgot about that, eh?
Right.
The daughter thing was crazy.
Like, come on, bro. It wasn't even real.
No.
Like, but people don't bring that up.
Family, what is up? It's Providence. Thanks for tuning in. And it should come as no surprise that Adin Ross thinks his man's Drake won the beef. Cool. But truth be told, even though he's biased, Adin Ross is correct. Drake won the beef. Now, I know everyone thinks I'm crazy for having that position. It's clearly not the dominant position. I would say at least 75% of the internet thinks Drake won, but I would argue that that number is mostly what it is because people hate Drake. That's basically what it is. I think that if people had fair, unbiased look at this battle, they would at least say this battle's close. Even if you want to say Kendrick won, people I think would at least call it a lot closer than what people are actually saying it was. Drake hate is a powerful emotion, and it causes people to, I think, score this battle way stronger in Kendrick's favor than it actually was. And the problem with these battles are there's no official scorecard or official criteria that we have to score these battles. People just go off of basically their favorites. If you don't like Drake, you think he lost. If you're a Kendrick fan, you think he lost. If you're a hip hop purist, you hate Drake. You've probably hated Drake for years. You've wanted him to lose. You think he lost. If you're a Drake fan, you probably think he won, right? Like that's basically how this battle was scored. For me, the most important thing in the battle is, I would say, truth and bars, and who can communicate those truth in bars, rapping ability. As far as I am concerned, Drake out-rapped Kendrick. He simply did. I think that if you want to talk about which records were the most disrespectful, I still think, in my opinion, the most disrespectful record in this whole entire beef was Tailor Made Freestyle. People have glossed over how absolutely disrespectful it was for Drake to use an AI Tupac and AI Snoop to tell Kendrick that he needs to step up in the battle. Now, to Kendrick's credit, he did eventually step up, but it was still immensely disrespectful that Drake would do that, and immensely creative. And people found a way to gloss over the fact that Drake is basically the first mainstream artist to use AI, and to use it in a way that was very compelling in a rap beef if you're actually being unbiased about it. Now, here's the thing. What's true and what's not, obviously, that's very difficult to verify, but the question remains for simple things like, hey, Drake, you got a daughter. I think it's very easy for you to provide evidence of that or sources about that. That's not problematic. Now, whether or not you want to provide sources on whether or not Drake is a PDF file, that might be problematic because that could lead to like criminal charges. You might not want to go that far, right? I'm sure whatever Drake's sources he had on Kendrick being an abuser, that might be a little bit too much. He might not want to go that far. Cool, but why can't you provide any evidence about Drake's daughter? There wouldn't be any criminal charges attached to that. And the problem I have with Kendrick when it comes to some of these claims that he made is that this whole daughter thing was a clear reference to the battle that Kendrick had with Pusha T. And the thing is, when Pusha T accused Drake of having a son, Drake never denied it. As a matter of fact, Drake conceded the battle because he actually did have a son, and he couldn't actually deny the fact that that was true. Now, all this extra stuff about him being a deadbeat dad and all that, I think Drake had every intention of taking care of his son. Drake was obviously within his right to not let anybody know about his son, but the fact of the matter is, it was all surprising info that we didn't know Drake had a son. So there was actually truth and fact attached to what Pusha T was saying. Drake straight up denied the fact that he has a daughter, and historically, we have reason to believe that if it was true, Drake would probably concede. And so this whole daughter thing doesn't look like it was factual at all. This whole snitching thing, 1090 Jake already is on record saying that had nothing to do with anything. And so, and the whole PDF thing, Drake's suing right now to clear his name. So we have, I think, strong reason to believe that nothing Kendrick said was actually true. And so if you check off the truth box, like, as far as I'm concerned, obviously, while there hasn't been any significant evidence that shows that Kendrick is an abuser, at the end of the day, we haven't even heard Kendrick come out and make any claim denying it. We haven't heard Whitney come out and make any claim denying it. All we have seen is Whitney dancing in a Not Like Us video, and I'm assuming that Whitney dancing with the kids is supposed to tell us they all good over there. Nothing ever happened. But the fact of the matter is, while it hasn't been proven, Kendrick hasn't done anything in my mind to alleviate any significant doubt that it happened. So while Drake hasn't been proven correct, I think that when you're looking at what was actually said and actually weighing it and actually going off of history and the history of Drake in battles, I actually have a lot more reason to actually think that Kendrick is not telling the truth. He hasn't provided nothing. So basically, you accept what Kendrick has to say about Drake if you're a Kendrick fan and you hate Drake, but you don't accept it because it's based on any evidence. Now, people are gonna say, oh man, what about that time? Man, Millie Bobby Brown text. And Millie Bobby Brown came out and said nothing happened. Oh, what about that time when Drake was on stage with that 17-year-old? Oh, you mean, even though that 17-year-old girl said nothing happened, you think if Drake was really trying to deal with a minor, he would deal with a minor in front of God knows how many thousands of people at his show? Clearly, that was just a stage performance, right? And if you're thinking critically about this, you're not gonna assume that, okay, Drake's into teenagers because of a stage performance. So all of these things that people try to bring up don't prove the point. And now, do I know Drake? No. Could it be revealed later that something legitimate happens or there's a legitimate accuser that comes forward? Of course. But until we have that, we can't assume that anything that was said was true. So as far as I'm concerned, when it comes to the truth aspect of it, it's false. But for me, that's not the thing that I use to weigh the battle the most, because admittedly, no one really knows what's true and what's false. Like, we don't really know. We can't judge the battle off of facts purely because we don't know. We can surmise, we can weigh, we can think critically on whether or not something might be true, something might be false, but we don't actually know. But for me, the thing that really matters the most is the lyrical ability. That's what it comes down to me, for me, when it comes to battles. Obviously, making the hit song that everybody wants to dance to is cool, but the fact of the matter is, if you look like Not Like Us, a hit song is like, okay, cool, you had a really, really nice beat, okay? DJ Mustard gave you the beat. Are we gonna say DJ Mustard helped Kendrick win? Like, for me, a really, really nice beat is nice because you want the song to maybe listen and dance to, but at the end of the day, it's about the bars, man. What was said? Like, which rapper beat the other rapper? It's about the bar. I'm thinking to myself, when you listen to Family Matters, go back and listen to that third verse. Go back and listen to the Michael Jackson flips. Listen, one thing that Kendrick never picked back up in this entire battle, he left that whole Michael Jackson Prince stuff alone, because once Drake got him in push-ups with saying, what's a prince to a king? You my son. I think once he did that, I think that Kendrick left all of that alone. I didn't hear him talk about no Michael Jackson Prince references no more for the whole battle. And then when you go back, you listen to the third verse of Family Matters, when Drake is saying, well, actually, you know what? You actually might be Mike. And he talks about the comparisons about how, yeah, just like Mike didn't want his brother to be in the spotlight over him, you ain't want J. Cole to be in the spotlight over you. Like, the insane flips that Drake is doing is top tier. The lyricism is top tier. And while Not Like Us has some cool little one-liners, A minor and all that, you can't, that's cool. You know what I'm saying? I really can't think of any great bars that Kendrick had in this whole battle. I can't. And the fact is, if people weren't itching for Kendrick Lamar to be the winner in this battle, they would have paid more attention to Family Matters. People say, well, Kendrick stepped all over Family Matters when he released Meet the Grams 15 minutes later. All right, cool. Meet the Grams is objectively trash. I'm sorry. From a lyrical standpoint, from a storytelling standpoint, objectively, Meet the Grams is horrible. It just is what it is. It's not factual. It sounded like a soundtrack for a scary movie, and I guess that's what Kendrick was going for, because he was trying to paint Drake as this horrible, sex trafficking pedo. Fine, but as a song, if that stuff's not true, how the song actually sounds and all that matters. And it just didn't have a good sound to it. It was off. And so people focused on that track and people said, oh man, you know, he stepped on Family Matters. But I think people chose to focus on that track because they wanted Drake to lose. Listen, I promise you, if the weight of the internet was on Drake's side and Family Matters and Meet the Grams dropped the same night, there's no way people are focusing on Meet the Grams over Family Matters. It's just no way. Family Matters is head over heels far better than Meet the Grams. But people was like, yeah, okay, you know, Kendrick, and Kendrick was masterful in this whole thing from the standpoint of this. This is my honest opinion about this beef. I personally believe that Kendrick Lamar knew Drake was gonna come with these allegations of abuse, and Kendrick Lamar, remember, between the release of Push-Ups and when Kendrick finally responded was like 2-3 weeks. I believe in those 2 to 3 weeks, Kendrick was cooking. I think Drake telegraphed the fact that he was gonna go personal with talking about, you know, the family stuff, the abuse stuff, and Kendrick realized, okay, well, if he's going to do that, I need to be prepared to make some serious accusations about Drake. And he prepared himself over the next couple of weeks. This is why I think, honestly, even though I think Drake won this beef, I think one of his biggest mistakes was actually telegraphing the fact that he was going to go personal. I think that Drake should have never mentioned Kendrick's wife in Push-Ups, in Tailor Made. He should have never made any threats about, well, you about to wake the demon up and this ain't the only thing I know and all of that. I think when Kendrick heard all of that, he said, you know what? I gotta prepare for this. I know exactly what he's gonna say. So he went and he fabricated this whole stuff about Drake being a pedo and all that. So because he knew that he couldn't let any domestic violence accusations be the only thing lingering in the air. So he was ready to drop as soon as Family Matters came out because he knew where Drake was going to go with it. And so people always say, man, it was so brilliant that Kendrick dropped right after Drake. Bro, he did that as for self-preservation. He did that because he knew what Drake was going to say, and he knew for a fact that he could not allow that to go unanswered immediate, right? I personally feel like if Drake didn't let him know that he was going to do all that, say all that, I think Kendrick waits for Drake to drop a record, and then maybe a couple days later he responds and all that, right? I think he would have waited. But because he knew what was going to be said, he already had, look, I've got to go crazy and write something in response. And that's why Meet the Grams was ready to sort of shift the conversation and you know, have other, you know, people discussing, well, is Drake a pedo and all that? Because he couldn't, imagine if Family Matters dropped and we didn't hear a response for even 2 to 3 days, and everyone's listening to Family Matters and the way that Family Matters ends, and there's no response. People would have been going crazy, like, bro, like, Kendrick, is this true? But Kendrick knew he couldn't let that be the only thing in the air, and so he was ready. But with that, all of that being said, I still think it was, as Drake said, gimmicks. None of it was true. There's no daughter. They're not about to raid the embassy. None of that's true, but it's a great distraction, right? And so for me, I personally think you can't put a whole body on somebody, right? And when I say a whole body, I mean a whole daughter. Try to win the battle like Pusha T won, especially, and people don't bring this up, like if you got that information from OVO and it was false information, listen, if you got false information from OVO about a daughter, you got tricked by the person you're battling into putting false information. How do we not take points away from you for that? How do we not take points away if you got tricked into putting false information into the song? And you might say, well, we don't know that. He admits in 616 in LA that he was talking to OVO and OVO was giving him information. He admits it. So we know that Kendrick was having conversations. And Drake says in Family Matters, you're digging for dirt, you should be digging for proof. In other words, Drake knows, yeah, you're looking for dirt, but it's not true. So you're going to drop this whole stuff about me having a daughter and it's not true. Like, how do we not take points away from that? Oh, because Not Like Us got a good beat? Nah, bro, that's problematic. So I personally think when you look at the truth, like you look at how, if in fact, see, I think the one thing Drake should have documented and referenced the fact that he was feeding him false information. If he was able to successfully prove like, yeah, you got that daughter stuff from OVO and it's false. If he was able to successfully show that, I think that would have did a lot. Now, people would have still ignored it probably and been dancing to Not Like Us. But at the end of the day, I think, and I personally believe this, with everything that Drake does, people always pull up and say it's an L in the moment and all that. People would have been dancing to Not Like Us, all that. But as time goes on, just like with everything Drake does, people are going to come back later and say, actually, this was a masterpiece. just like when Drake drops an album, people rush to say it's trash. Months, years later, people go, oh, actually, man, this is aging like fine wine. I think that Drake's tracks, Family Matters, all that stuff, even the AI tracks, are going to age like fine wine. And people are going to come back to this battle 5-10 years out, right? And they're going to go, man, you know, Drake really had this dude bar for bar. And the creativity was insane. And Kendrick, well, you know, it was cool. Not Like Us was dope, but there were some mistakes. And I don't think people are talking about Drake's mistakes. People are not willing to talk about the mistakes that Kendrick made in the beef. So I think all of that is, as far as I'm concerned, why I believe that Drake did in fact win the battle. And Adin Ross is correct. So thank you guys for listening. I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.